Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy.
Hey friends, welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Jamie, along with the small but mighty, tough as nails Carrie.
I've got the crud, man.
I was thinking of you because, nails are always pretty small, but they can still hold and support like some really heavy shit, just like you, my tiny little friend. So, as you wheeze.
As I wheeze. Well, thank you very much, Miss James. I appreciate that intro. Yeah.
So I really don't know how to preface this case. It's weird and it's sad and gross. And that pretty much
Wow. You are selling me.
Right? Yeah, that's kind of the best summary. So what are you sipping on tonight, Care Bear?
Oh, fucking NyQuil. Neat. I'm mainlining it. Yeah. No. I'm actually drinking water. I am hydrating. I'm drinking ice water. It feels good on my throat. But I will be mainlining NyQuil later. For sure.
That sounds safe.
Very safe. What are you drinking? Something better than NyQuil, I hope.
I am drinking some Johnny Walker Black Label Scotch.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
What's the fancy occasion? Are you just bougieing out now?
I mean, it's this.
Oh my gosh.
It's the tiny bottle. Yeah, but I'd never tried it. And I was like, this is like the perfect opportunity. You try it in small batches so you're not out $1,000 on a bottle of some shit you don't even like. So figured I'd try it. But I'm realizing I might not be a big Scotch drinker. So cheers to you, my friend.
Clink. Cheers. Clink.
I am going to tell you about an interesting yet simple couple, 70-year-old John McCullough and his wife Lois, who was a year older than him, so she was 71. And they lived in a modest 3-story home in Great Barrow, Essex, in the UK, kind of a village just like northeast of London. So not super far from the city, but a small little cute village. John was a retired educator. He had worked as a business studies lecturer at a university, which sounds real fancy.
Yeah.
He loved playing golf and snooker. Meant to look up what that was exactly. I have no idea, but sounds like a hoot. His family describes him as having a great sense of humor, who loved telling jokes, but he was also described as being kind of rigid and curt. A man who was, stuck in a routine and wasn't overly friendly. So it kind of seems like whichever version of John you got depended on how well you knew him. People that he was really close to, he probably cut loose a little bit more, but he was described as likely being autistic and probably OCD. So just kind of a structured routine was key. And his wife Lois was described, just as being very kind and thoughtful. She loved being a grandmother. And she also had pen pals from all over the world that she wrote to for years, which I think is just super cute. Like just a big slice of precious pie. People described her as being very shy and introverted, even being pretty withdrawn. Not the kind of person who would just strike up conversations with people she didn't know. And I'm not sure if she had worked as well. If she did, I couldn't find any details about what she did for employment. I could just find it about John. The couple had 5 grown daughters, multiple grandchildren. Their children said that their parents weren't overly affectionate towards them growing up. They grew up in a very strict household, but felt that their parents were loving. John and Lois loved taking seaside trips together where they would enjoy walks along the water and they'd visit various attractions. That was just kind of like their go-to
Hmm.
happy place. They loved it.
Mhm.
And they had plans, to move to the coast and live there where they could enjoy their retirement in their place together. John and Lois both had chronic health issues, which I'll get into more a little bit later. But their youngest daughter, 35-year-old Virginia, was living with them to just kind of help them out. As part of their arrangement, John gave her an allowance. He gave her, I didn't know how much specifically, but would give her a certain amount of money. And she had full access to their finances. So she was able to help out paying bills and other expenses when needed. Virginia lived with her parents rent free, kind of in return for acting as their caregiver and helping around the house, which seemed pretty sweet. It was a good
Yeah.
arrangement for the three of them. So Virginia, who also went by Ginny to people who knew her well, was their youngest daughter. And she was described as a bit of an oddball and socially awkward, but she'd never been in any kind of trouble, just kind of a strange person. She didn't have a good relationship with her sisters. And while
Mm.
they were likely really grateful that she was helping their parents, they thought that she was very strange and a compulsive liar. So there was a lot of tension
Oh, interesting.
between the siblings.
Because I'm like, well, there's good oddballs and then there's not good oddballs.
Yeah. Yep. So I couldn't really find any information about their other children. And I don't think that they were even close to what you could call a tight knit family. From what I could gather, some of them were like completely estranged from their parents. John struggled with alcoholism, and Lois had mental health issues, which I'm sure created tension and distance within their family. But
Sure.
again,
Yeah.
I couldn't find a ton of information about it. People in their community began noticing that they hadn't seen John and Lois in a while.
Uh-oh.
Friends and family would receive birthday cards and gifts on occasion, even postcards from the seaside area that they loved to visit. And, their daughters would get text messages from Lois on occasion, but the couple hadn't been seen in person in a very long time. Neighbors and local shop owners who had grown accustomed to seeing this couple on a regular basis noticed that they were no longer coming around. And so this is the time that COVID-19 was hitting.
Mm.
So a lot of them not being around was chalked up to the COVID-19 pandemic and the very strict restrictions that were in place, especially for people who had medical conditions that made them even more susceptible to the virus. But after those social restrictions were lifted, the couple still wasn't seen. After their doctor, so this is their general practitioner, became concerned about the well-being of John and Lois, they ended up contacting the Essex police in September of 2023. John wasn't in the greatest health. I mean, he had high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, glaucoma, and other issues.
Yikes.
So,
He was feeling pretty yucky.
Right. There's a lot going on in that body. And then Lois suffered from mental disorders. She had agoraphobia, which, if you're not familiar, is a severe anxiety disorder that basically causes people to just avoid crowds and public places and certain situations. They have so much anxiety over being around other people and being put in certain situations. And in severe cases, people won't even leave their homes. I don't think it was that bad, but it was pretty severe. She also had pretty severe anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. So she was a bag of fun in another way. Like, her mental health issues kind of kept them from being out and about a lot. They mostly stayed at home and kept to themselves. But John's health issues required him to have pretty regular doctor's appointments.
I was just going to say, yeah.
A lot of testing and just monitoring, of his health and adjusting treatments and medications, things like that. And he was on multiple prescription medications for these conditions. Virginia had called to cancel multiple appointments and had told the doctor's office that her parents were, either sick or on long
Oh,
vacations.
no.
However,
Oh,
after
no.
John had missed a lot of appointments and had not picked up refills of very important prescriptions, his doctor had become really worried about this couple. I really want to know how I can find a doctor that cares that much about me. Because it wasn't that long ago that my primary doctor of years didn't recognize me when I served him a beer at work the week after he did my PAP. Like, I'm a bartender. I had my PAP. The next week, my doctor walked in at a party. I gave him a beer. He had no idea who I was. So it was just
You
kind
are
of like, fuck you,
fucking
man.
joking.
No. So he got to third base with me, but I doubt he would give the tiniest of fucks if I didn't show up for my appointments. So kudos to the McCulloughs for having a doctor that seemed to give some bit of a shit about them.
You know what? That's a really good point. It's really hard to find a doctor that's actually invested in your whole well-being these days.
Yeah. Any hoozles. Their doctor cared, alerted the police, and they ended up launching a missing persons case for John and Lois in September of 2023. When investigators were unable to reach them, they, of course, went to go speak with their daughter, Virginia, who lived with them. She initially told them that her parents were traveling and completely fine, but that they wouldn't be returning home until the following month.
Mm-hmm.
She told officers that her parents weren't very tech savvy, so that they didn't even have cell phones. But as detectives started looking further into the couple, they found cell phone numbers for both John and Lois, and that they had very high amounts of debt. Investigators tried to reach the couple at the seaside resort, where Virginia claimed that they were staying, but were unable to make any contact with them or confirm that they were staying there. Nothing. It was like, okay, what? So the information that she was giving them just wasn't making sense and couldn't be verified. Nothing was adding up here. Due to the increasing concern for the couple's safety and their well-being, on September 15th of 2023, officers obtained warrants to search the McCullough's home and for Virginia's arrest. Several police officers surrounded the home. Some of them knocked on the front door, while others went around to the back of the home, and they ended up using kind of a battering ram to gain entry into the house.
So she didn't let them in?
I think she eventually did through the front door, but officers were then also coming through the back. So she had officers like sandwich her. There's body cam footage of all of this. You can see the body cam footage of the officers that enter through the back.
Okay.
And so whenever they enter, there's already officers in the front of the home, and Virginia's just standing there like, oh, fuck.
Okay.
So once they were inside, they quickly found Virginia, and she was, of course, immediately handcuffed and placed under arrest on suspicion of murder. She didn't resist. She didn't question why they were there. She was actually really cooperative. When officers asked if there was anything on the property they should know about, she was like, yep. And she pointed to a back room in the house, the one where officers had just broken through the door and made entry. She was like, I also need to tell you about something on the top floor. So it was like she was almost like excited to like show them some things. Leading officers to this back room on the main floor, she pointed to what appeared to be a bed that had kind of some paintings and other things spread over the top of it. And she just pointed to it and said, my dad's body is in there.
In there? Ooh.
Yeah. And so officers are like, Jesus. And then she was like, you can find my mom's body upstairs inside of a wardrobe. Just very matter of fact. Like, yep, my dad's in there. My mom's upstairs. I can show you if you want me to.
Okay.
She very calmly told the officers that she had killed her parents and exactly where their bodies could be found. And she explained how she had murdered them. She was just chill as fuck about it. It's very strange to watch. So while police searched the home, she told them, I did know that this would kind of come eventually, and it's proper that I serve my punishment, and that serving time in prison might give me a bit of peace. So she's just like, I know I'm fucking busted, whatever. And at one point, she even like joked with the officers and said, cheer up, at least you've caught the bad guy. I know I don't seem 100% evil. It was, what the fuck, like such an easy confess. Like they weren't having to pull anything out of her. And so I'm sure after years of, lying and misleading people, it was a bit of a relief that the jig was up. Like she knew that the day was coming, and it probably just,
Yeah.
but still very, very strange to just kind of watch how cold and detached she
Yeah.
seems from all of it.
Oh my.
I mean, Virginia was an open book, like a really fucked up book, but an open one. And she didn't hold up like any details about what happened. She confessed to police that she had poisoned her father on the night of June 17th, 2019, with some prescription medication that she had crushed up and added to multiple alcoholic drinks that she had made for him. The following morning, she found him dead in his bedroom. Like he had just gone to bed, and in the night he had overdosed on the pills that she'd slipped into his drinks. The world's worst bartender then went upstairs to her mother's bedroom, because John and Lois actually had separate bedrooms. He had kind of an office / bedroom on the main floor, and then she had a bedroom on the next floor up. And she had also tried to drug her mother the night before, but Lois did not receive the same amount that John had because she wasn't really a drinker. And so she hadn't finished the drink that Virginia had made her. Just a quick hot tip. Like if somebody makes you a beverage and then seems really adamant and extremely interested in your consumption of that drink, just set it down and fucking run along.
Just walk away from the drink.
Yeah. Just go away. So anyway, I think she was probably hoping that her mother had also died peacefully, kind of an overdose, but wasn't completely surprised to find her alive and sitting up in bed when she walked into her mother's room. However, not wanting her mother to find out that she had killed her father, Virginia chose to end her life as well. She went into her mother's bedroom and began beating Lois with a hammer.
Oh my God.
Not wanting her to suffer because she had been beaten, but she was still alive. So Virginia ran to her own bedroom and grabbed a kitchen knife that she had hidden and had on hand for this specific purpose. And then she stabbed her mother multiple times in the chest. She told investigators that she had attacked her mother while she was sitting in her bed listening to the radio with headphones on, which was her normal morning routine.
Oh my.
She said that when she approached her mother, ready to strike her with the hammer, she just stared at her in disbelief and asked, "What are you doing?" Which is just such a haunting image in my mind. This is your caretaker, your daughter that's been helping you, and now she's getting ready to kill you.
She was so confused as to what was happening. She couldn't rationalize it.
Yeah. When she was talking to investigators, she said that when she was hitting her mother, it was, quote, like someone badly playing the xylophone. It was willy-nilly. That was her fucking quote.
Wow. That just gave me goosebumps. That's very callous.
Once in police custody, Virginia told investigators where they could find the murder weapons, the kitchen knife and the hammer, which she said would still have her mother's blood on it. Like she didn't clean it or anything. She just hid it.
Dang.
And these murders were definitely premeditated. She had spent 3 months collecting prescription drugs, and she had purchased the knife that she had used to kill Lois, like
intentionally for that purpose?
Yes. And so she just kind of was collecting these items and had like her little arsenal. Like she knew that she was going to be doing this. Following the murders, Virginia went to a local doctor's office to get treatment for a cut on her finger that she had gotten from the knife while stabbing her mother. She told the medical staff that she had just cut her hand cutting vegetables. And at that time, nobody suspected anything otherwise.
Yeah.
So after she was all bandaged up or stitched up, I don't know, she just, went out to do some light shopping. She bought some plastic gloves and some sleeping bags using her father's debit card.
Okay.
John's remains were found in what was referred to as a makeshift tomb or a homemade mausoleum, which
What?
was made of masonry blocks that had been held together using caulk. Virginia had added some wooden panels to the front of it to cover the concrete blocks. I think so if anyone walked into the room, it didn't stand out as maybe anything more than a bed.
Okay.
And she had covered it up with blankets, and then she'd placed some paintings and pictures on top of it. Again, I'm assuming probably so if there's stuff sitting on it, someone wouldn't just go and sit on the bed and realize that there was anything.
That this isn't a bed. Yeah.
And she had wrapped his body in multiple layers of plastic and other materials, and then had placed his body in one of the sleeping bags that she'd purchased, and then placed it in this tomb that she had created. Lois's body had also been wrapped in plastic and put in a sleeping bag. And she had then been stuffed inside of a wardrobe behind some bedding in an upstairs bedroom of the house. This is gross, but the doors, she had used like some heavy duty tape to tape the doors shut to keep flies and maggots from escaping.
Oh my God.
And then she had placed concrete blocks in front of it. She had obviously arranged things to deter people from finding the bodies, like I'd said. But I feel like a taped up wardrobe with blocks in front of it might stand out even more. I would be like, what is in there? Like, do you have a pet puma that you don't want to skate? Like, what the fuck is in there? Like, so to me, it would have stood out even more, but there weren't people really in the home, whatever.
Yeah.
Both bodies, after 4 years, were obviously severely decomposed and could only be identified through medical records. Following autopsies and testing, it was determined that John had ingested his regular prescription medications as well as the drug pregabalin. I think that's how it's said. We'll go with that. Or Lyrica, as Americans know it from the 11 jillion prescription ads we get bombarded with. This medication is an anticonvulsant and neuropathic pain agent. It's used to treat conditions like anxiety, fibromyalgia, and some seizure disorders. So the combination of all those drugs acted as a really strong sedative that ended up killing John. And I'm not sure how she got her hands on the Lyrica. Maybe it was something that had been prescribed to Lois for her anxiety and Virginia was just hoarding them. I have no idea. I couldn't find any details about how she was getting those drugs.
Yeah.
Although her body was severely decomposed, Lois's autopsy revealed that she had been stabbed 8 times on the right side of her chest, neck, and shoulder. She also had blunt force injuries to her head and arms, obviously, from trying to defend herself while her daughter beat her with a fucking
the shit
hammer.
out of her.
So the murders had taken place in June of 2019, which meant that Virginia had been living in their home with her parents' dead bodies for over 4 years.
Right.
4 years. And I'm by no means an expert in human decomposition, but that house had to fucking stink.
So
and
I was going to ask,
for a while,
for all the layers of plastic and other materials, and then the sleeping bag, and then mausoleuming her dad up behind brick with caulk, and then putting plywood in front of that, and then putting blankets and then paintings. Did that contain the smell?
I don't think so. I don't know that you could put enough of anything in there with there not being a stink of some kind. And I don't know how she did it. So, how was Virginia able to get away with these murders for so damn long?
Right.
The COVID-19 pandemic definitely worked in Virginia's
100%.
favor.
Yep.
As she, tried to keep concerned friends and family away from their home. She was probably the happiest person on the planet for there to be
Right.
a global pandemic and a mandatory shutdown for social interactions. For 4 years, she manipulated and lied to people close to their family, as well as financial companies, doctors and medical staff, and the police who had inquired about the couple's whereabouts. She used a range of excuses, telling loved ones or doctors that, they were either sick and unable to have visitors or make it to appointments, or that they were just simply away on really long trips, which didn't raise a ton of suspicion because they loved their time by the sea. And in retirement, that was their plan. So I think for a while, that made a lot of sense to people. John had a close friend that he would meet up with for beers almost every Friday night at like their favorite pub. And when John just sort of stopped showing up, he assumed that it was due to Lois's agoraphobia and that he was just staying with her at home, that maybe it had progressed and he was just being a good husband staying with her. To her parents, Virginia was a really big help to them with their health conditions. She did a lot around the home to assist them, and they were glad that she was there. They saw her as a huge support. So I'm assuming that the people around them didn't question her intentions or the safety of John and Lois. It's still just so wild to me that years went by and people didn't question that these two people just dropped off the face of the fucking earth. Neighbors pointed out that the curtains were always drawn at the McCullough's home, so it was impossible to see who was there or what activities were going on inside of the house, or how many people were moving around, what was going on. And Virginia was described by their neighbors and locals as being very eccentric and chatty, but kind of pleasant, when they would see her out. So just strange but nice. So her behavior didn't really draw any attention or offer red flags that something bad had happened. A lot of them likely assumed that John and Lois had already moved away and were simply enjoying their retirement. No one suspected that Virginia could be capable of doing such horrendous acts. But from what I could find while researching this, she did some pretty weird shit. She was an oddball. She would constantly bring people gifts, but weird things like bottles of booze or bags of food, not like a bring your neighbor you actually know some homemade cookies or brownies or something. More like I ordered some Chinese takeout from a restaurant and just got you some too. 2 or 3 meals worth of just Chinese takeout, and then would just like leave them for people.
Okay.
So people weren't asking for it. They didn't know her very well. So it was like she was trying to make friends or win people over, but was just too awkward to make it land and make people comfortable and want to get to know her better. One neighbor said that he received all these takeout food items, donuts, potted cherry trees, bottles of Southern Comfort, and even random tools like pruning saws, like just all kinds of weird shit. Even though he would tell her repeatedly, like, I don't need anything, or I don't really want any of this. Like, I can't eat all this food. I don't want it. Like, she would still just show up and like leave him.
Oh, interesting.
Random stuff. At one point, she was seen wearing maternity clothes and was wearing a fake baby bump, showing people ultrasound pictures that seemed pretty fucking fake. Like, I think most people were like, you obviously got that off the internet. And no one believed that she was pregnant, which probably made for some very interesting interactions with people in the neighborhood. It was like she was suddenly real pregnant and then not,
Yeah.
She had made over 200 calls to the Essex Police Department over the years, and they were all over just really trivial matters. And at times, she would tell them that it was Lois. Like, she would pretend to be her mother calling. And I'm sure that this was an attempt to keep, a record that her mother was alive
Mm-hmm.
and well,
Sure.
and that no one would need to come looking for her. But the police department, she was on their radar like, Jesus Christ, what now? In the months prior to her arrest, she reported to police that she had been attacked by 3 people in the back garden of their home. When an officer arrived to get a statement from Virginia, they noticed that she had just really superficial scratches on her face. Like, she wasn't hurt. It was just like a few minor scratches. Police investigated the alleged attack, but nothing ever came of it because she fucking made it up. Like, it was just another thing that she was doing for attention
Huh.
or whatever. But little did that officer know that while she was taking a report of that bogus attack, there were 2 murdered bodies
Oh
right
my God,
inside the home.
yes. Oh my God.
And so, what the hell was Virginia's motive for killing her parents? Like, what got us here? It was money. Money, of
Oh my
course.
God.
Greed. So, in addition to finding the bodies, police found evidence in the home that supported how she had been manipulating her parents financially. She'd been stealing from them for years, and John and Lois were in massive amounts of debt, completely unbeknownst to them. Investigators found forged letters that Virginia had created, which made her parents believe that they had been scammed by hackers, explaining why at least some of their money had gone missing. She would also blame the banks when John would get notice that their accounts were steadily dwindling. You know, how banks are just always fucking things up. Like, she would just kind of paint it like it's an error on their end and whatever. Like, she just had excuses for everything. They discovered that she had changed her phone number more than 100 times and that her parents' mobile numbers had been changed as well. She'd purchased around 80 different SIM cards for those
Oh,
phones.
oh my.
And most of those cards were found in the house with labels on them like the bank or Universal Credit or Dad's WhatsApp. Like, so she could keep track of where she had used the numbers associated with each of those SIM cards. So
Oh
she was just
my.
attempting to evade creditors and try to keep track of all the
That is a
lies that
full-time
she
fucking
was,
job that requires
right?
an Excel workbook with color coding.
Exactly. She
Jesus.
opened credit cards in their names and she had racked up huge amounts of debt. After killing them, she was still spending John's teaching pension. The BBC reported that she had claimed around $200,000, like in US dollars, through those credit cards and their pensions. And she had spent about $30,000 on online gambling. So
Oh, she has a gambling problem.
yeah, fucking Virginia, you knucklehead.
Well, she's got 99 problems and gambling is one of them.
Yeah, and I don't think it was like necessarily an addiction that she couldn't control because like the spending was actually kind of restricted. She wasn't spending it on lavish things. Like, she would buy clothes and some jewelry and things like that, but it was honestly just kind of her using the money to live. Like, she wasn't
Mm.
going balls out buying a bunch of fancy stuff because that would draw attention. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it was just her kind of just living off that money.
Okay.
Prior to their deaths, she had lied to them about her work and her financial situations. She'd made her parents believe that she had a full-time job as a web designer, but was working hard to fulfill her dreams of becoming an artist. And that she would one day be able to help them out financially with the money that she would be able to make once she was able to make that happen and become this successful artist. So she left the home every day to go to work, but who knows what the fuck she was actually doing because she absolutely did not have a job.
Oh, and she never shared where she went every day for all that time?
Apparently she was buying SoCo and Chinese food for neighbors who didn't care for her. And that was her full-time job. I don't fucking know. But she
Well,
would
and
just
cataloging her SIM cards.
Yes, exactly. That was huge. And so when she refers to being an artist, Virginia told people that she was selling her drawings of animals to local art shops. But according to people who saw her artwork, they were, quote, pretty ordinary. And so this made me laugh because I was like just picturing some like really shitty kid drawings with like colored pencils. And you're like, oh, what is this? That's a beautiful horse, Virginia. And it's like a fucked up greyhound with bangs, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so nice.
What is that?
Yeah, I love it. And she's just like, I'm gonna really make it. And I'm gonna support my parents with more drawings. Virginia painted this picture to her parents that she was just creating a future that they would all benefit from, and it was going to be beautiful. But John and Lois were killed before they could discover and expose her lies and theft. Like, they had no idea that this was going on. While being interviewed, she told investigators that she was stuck in the middle of an abusive father and a mentally ill mother who was emotionally abusive to her, and that she needed an escape from their financial issues, the ones that she created. So, fuck off, Virginia. In response to the allegations of abuse from their parents, John and Lois's other daughters stated that the claims were lies and a disgusting misrepresentation of our family. So they were all like, no, that is not fucking true. She was not abused. Don't know what she's talking about.
We're not close, but that sure shit didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Detective Superintendent Rob Kirby, who worked on Virginia's case, stated these were the actions of someone who had taken time to plan and carry out the murder of her parents in the interest of self-preservation and personal gain. Throughout the course of our investigation, we have built a picture of the vast levels of deceit, betrayal, and fraud she engaged in. It was on a shocking and monumental scale. McCullough lied about almost every aspect of her life, maintaining a charade, I'm sure he said charade, to deceive everyone close to her and clearly taking advantage of her parents' goodwill. Virginia pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder on July 4th of 2024 and was sentenced 3 months later. She will serve a minimum of 36 years in prison before being eligible for parole. So I looked it up. She will be considered for parole on October 3rd of 2059. During the sentencing hearing, she simply nodded and showed no other emotion, just like she had when she was arrested. Like, she just seemed like she did not give a shit. And if you're like me, you are wondering how in the fuck the couple's 4 other children went more than 4 years without seeing or speaking to their parents. No alarm bells. Even though Virginia was constantly lying to her family, telling them her parents were fine, that is a very long goddamn time to not get eyes on a loved one. Louise Hopkins, who is one of Virginia's sisters, who had been estranged from her family since 2018, so a year before the murders.
Oh, yeah.
She ended up speaking publicly about her parents' murders. And in an interview with The Sun, she stated, "The worst thing is that my parents were left to rot. The grief has haunted me. I have bouts of thinking I must be to blame because I walked away from all that." She chose not to attend her sister's trial, stating, "I was invited to go, but didn't want to because I've made my peace, that I'd left the family and didn't want anything more to do with them. I forgive my sister, but I would not visit her. I have created a life of peace and tranquility for me and my children." And then in regard to her parents, she also said, "I will never forget them. I loved them, but I didn't like them." Oof, like what?
Yeah. That's some shitty parents right there.
We talked about this earlier too, but you might be wondering how she was able to live inside that house with 2 decomposing bodies. A retired Essex police detective, Paul Mallery, stated in an interview with Metro, he said, I have experienced the smells of a dead body, having spent time in mortuaries around the county, and it's horrendous. And how she has been in there with those bodies, I really don't know. Virginia used, like I said, heavy duty tape on the wardrobe where she placed her mother's body, which might have prevented, flies from escaping, but there's no way it could have concealed the smell of decay. And I know that would have eventually dissipated, but for a time, like, it had to have been a stench that you could just fucking choke on. Like, it makes me queasy just
eyes
thinking about it.
watering, gag reflex instigated. Like,
yes,
it has, like, you cannot catch your breath. You don't want to catch your breath.
Whenever neighbors were interviewed, there was one of their neighbors that said that they would notice that she would be outside at times, like sweeping leaves, like off their sidewalk or whatever. But there would be like 5 leaves, but she would be out there forever. Like, you would have thought that she was like raking the whole goddamn yard. And they were like, now it makes sense that maybe she
had to get out
outside and then, but she would also do things like that, I think, to just maybe catch people as they were walking by, just for social interaction, like kind of like, oh, hi, I was just out here sweeping leaves, and then pip, pip, cheerio.
Yeah.
But it was just weird. And so it's like, yeah, she probably was creating things that she could do to like be outside during that time.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I also don't know how she moved the bodies around. Like, I guess putting them in sleeping bags would help, like, slide them around, but getting her mother's body in that wardrobe could not have been an easy task. And
that
so
had to have taken quite a while.
Yeah. We've talked about dead weight and how hard that would be, like even just getting a body in a sleeping bag and like moving them to get plastic wrapped around them and stuff. Like, it had to have been a lot for her.
There are children that kill their parents, and their parents did all the quote unquote right things.
Right.
And then it sounds like Lois and John put a roof over their kids' heads, put clothes on their backs, fed them, gave them all the basic necessities for creature comfort and safety. But that was about it. And it sounds like John was probably severely alcoholic, and that certainly played a part in the family dynamics in the household.
Right. And their mom's mental health
issues and her agoraphobia, that's really devastating on the family. Like, that shit's devastating. It can cause a lot. I mean, when you've got one sister speaking publicly saying, I estranged intentionally, and yes, this whole thing happened, and wow, what a fucking story, blow my mind, etc., etc. Side note, I'm still estranged from my family, and I will continue to be. Like, there's a reason for that.
And there's a lot of speculation about what more might have been going on. Like, I think some psychiatrists say that Virginia was autistic, and that wouldn't have caused her to do this, but like that it might have made a little more sense about her just kind of lack of emotions when it came to the arrest, and her talking about it just being a little more matter of fact. But I really
sounds more psychopathic to me.
Yeah, that's where I go. And there's
like, she's incapable of feeling, so she's trying to mimic social interaction by giving these weird fucking gifts, and so she doesn't have any social awareness. She's incapable of social awareness, and she's incapable of feeling compassion and empathy and guilt and hurt and shame and all that stuff. So she tries to mimic all that stuff, but it's fucking weird because she doesn't know what it feels like.
She could detach because she was always detached.
Human life is no different than the cup that holds her water. If she's truly a psychopath, like, I don't know. I don't have a PhD in psychopathology.
Well, there were a lot of psychiatrists and experts that weighed in on, what they thought was going on. And that's where, when I was reading ones that were like, she has some psychopathic tendencies.
Yeah, okay.
Like, yeah.
Do you
I
think? Huge
am
red blinking
seeing that.
flags, I would say.
There's parricide, which is like the murder of a parent or a really close relative. And it's really a pretty uncommon crime. But a double parricide committed by a female made this like a really, really rare crime.
Yeah, that
And,
makes sense.
there's been, like I mentioned, a lot of speculation and discussion that maybe Virginia's motive for killing her parents wasn't just financially driven. And like I said, there isn't much information about the other McCullough girls, where they lived, how often they saw or spoke to their parents before they were killed, like what those relationships were like, or even what caused them to become estranged. Like there's just no information. The statements that were given publicly regarding their parents' deaths honestly kind of seem generic and a little bit cold. Just like the one that I read from Louise. It's like, yeah, it fucking sucks. Like I hate the thought that my parents were killed, but I also like my life is going on like it did before I found out they were killed.
Yeah, at first, when you called out the fact that it's like, and also, can we take a moment to talk about the fact that it took 4 years for someone, and it wasn't the family, it was the doctor.
A doctor, yeah.
Well, but now I get it, because if maybe all four of the other siblings were estranged because they had to just get out, they had to.
Yeah.
And that would explain the 4 years. That would explain why they never
Right.
realized.
And I mean, none of them had anything really positive to say about Virginia. So maybe that was part of it. Like maybe her presence in their parents' home was part of the reason for that estrangement. But I wouldn't expect their family to be like, yeah, so in 2017 at a dinner, my dad said this, and that's when I was like, I wasn't expecting to know like exact details, but even just like some sort of loose reference to like what was going on. Yeah. But like the fact that four of their kids didn't seem concerned after not seeing or speaking to their parents for 4 years is just mind-boggling to me. There had to be some things going on in that family that weren't made public. And so, Virginia made claims of physical and emotional abuse by their alcoholic father and mentally ill mother. And I kind of have to believe that maybe some of that was true. Maybe Virginia just didn't have the capacity or the means to move on like her other siblings. And I don't know what was going on, but it just seems like there's some big puzzle pieces missing here.
Well, if she's a psychopath, she's going to look at how can she manipulate the situation to feed what she wants. Why would she leave? She's got a fucking gold mine.
Right. Yeah.
There were probably a ton of reasons.
Yeah. And then the rest of it was just kind of, glossed over by the rest of the family. They were just kind of like, here's my quick statement. Sorry, mom and dad are
Peace
dead.
out. Yeah.
But bye.
Going back to my life now. Do we know if the four sisters have relationships with each other?
No, I couldn't find any of that.
Oh.
There weren't details, but there was just a lot of reference to most of them being estranged from the family. And so I kind of assumed that it was estranged from
all around.
All of them.
Yeah.
Like that maybe there might be a couple sisters that talk or whatever, but it just kind of seemed like they all went their separate ways and that was it. But then when they describe their parents, they're like, they loved their grandchildren and they loved spending time with family. It's like, well, when did that fucking happen? Because they were dead for over 4 years. That's where I get conflicted, is because they talk about their family in kind of this positive way, but then they're also like, I really don't give a shit. Like, I would just want to move past this.
Maybe it's they were shitty ass parents, but as grandparents, they're wonderful. I don't know.
Then if they're such amazing grandparents, then how did 4 years go by without you speaking to them? Weren't kids graduating or birthdays or whatever that they're not a part of?
Exactly.
It's so just strange to me. But anyway, I can speculate all day long.
Yeah, this one is
that is the sad, tragic, and confusing case of the murders of John and Lois McCullough by their own daughter.
That is wild. What's interesting is that most of us remember what we were doing and where we were generally during COVID, especially when we were all on quote unquote lockdown. I can remember what I was doing and how work was going because everybody had to transition to remote work really fast and blah, blah, blah. And to think that, like, while all of us remember what we were doing, Virginia was over here murdering her parents and then wrapping them up and then just bebopping around that fucking house with their bodies for the entire COVID.
Right.
That's insane to me.
And to me, one thing that like adds kind of a added layer of confusion is during COVID, I remember, like, I communicate with my parents regularly, but that was also an added time that it was like, are you doing okay? Are you feeling okay? Is everybody good? Checking in with people because everybody was scared to death of getting this virus. And so the fact that their children weren't checking in with their elderly parents that had chronic health issues that were even more susceptible to getting it, that's just another like piece that I'm like, what the fuck was going on?
It sounds like there was a lot of toxic stuff there.
Yeah.
Every family is dysfunctional.
For sure. But anyway, thank you for listening, Carrie, and everyone else. Every episode with you is a dream come true.
Oh, fuck off.
No. I'm being dead fucking serious. So I was being sincere.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were being funny.
I know it seems like I can't be serious about anything, but I truly do love this podcast and love
this podcast
are still doing
too. Yeah.
So anyway, with that, goodbye, Carrie.
Goodbye, James.
I love snorting things.
She knows she did it. She knows we know she did it.
It even smells weird. It's like dehumidifier water or something.
It gives off warm vibes.
I won't leave that in, but I don't like it.
Hopped out of bed like Mary fucking Poppins this morning. I was like,
oh my God, get ready.
Well, look at that. I'm feeling 60%.
I gotta lay down.
You did this.
Whoa.
See, I told you I'm so fucking funny.